But Manchester City won the match of the century. Well done, Man City!
They'll be celebrating on the street still, I expect.
Yes.
A famous 4-3 win.
How much consolation will they take from that, Luke?
I found it hard to even keep track of who was going through and who wasn't, to be honest.
What a game.
What a bloody... I mean, this weekend, Man City v Spurs, so soon after the last one.
This is going to be so strange. I'm sure we'll come on to that after.
If Man City win that, do they take the title back and get to go through it?
It's like a title belt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In the words of a now extradited man, it was extraordinary.
Julian Assange.
We got it. We got that.
Julian Assange, he's very much still here.
He will be.
It was one of the most ridiculous games I think I've ever seen. The first game in a very long time that when Sterling, in quotes, scored.
His first goal or his last goal?
No, in quotes, scored.
Right.
The goal
Not
that
his
didn't
actual
stand.
goal.
Okay, of course.
I was like, wow, that's amazing. What a finish. What a amazing piece of composure and skill and settling of a tie that is.
Yeah.
Brilliant. And it's a testament to the season he's had and how much he's improved. And my mind closed it off then. Right, that's the end of that. Done. And then it dragged me back in.
Yeah.
And I wasn't ready for it. And the VAR situation just overloaded me with more information that I almost couldn't
It's
cope
like
with.
watching an Avengers film, and there's always like a post-credits
At the end of the
sort
credits.
thing, like, oh, well,
Yeah.
how's it going to fit? Is it Howard the Duck or Ed the Duck? I always forget which one.
Howard the Duck.
Howard
Ed
the
the
Duck.
Duck was in the broom cupboard with now hench Andy
Why
Peters.
why wasn't Ed the Duck? No, it wasn't Ed the Duck Andy Crane. Gordon the
You might be
Gopher
right,
was-
actually. Yes.
Oh, I can't
No,
remember.
Gordon the Gopher was Philip Schofield.
Yeah.
Jim
Where
was
was
close.
Wilson-
at
Wilson the
at
Butler?
worst.
Well, I don't know where that's come from. Disney Heights Hotel. What? But anyway,
Count Duckula.
Go
an,
home,
an,
Roger.
an incredible
was-
game. And I think what we should say, and I'm sure we will, but allow me to be the first. I mean, what an effort from Spurs. I mean, on paper, that's a mismatch for a series of reasons.
Yeah.
One, because I know it to be the case that in January, and I haven't seen it since, but in January, only Man United had more injuries than them throughout the season. I wouldn't be at all surprised if they've overtaken United. They had a couple of key players out. They essentially had no serious midfielders in that position, and then the one they did have in Sissoko had to go off injured anyway.
Got a yellow?
Man City's team cost about 350 million. Spurs cost 40 or something like that. It should have been a total mismatch, yet they were able to get involved in a thing that everyone who pretends, myself included, to know anything about football, had thought they shouldn't do, which is getting a straight shootout with Man City. And what they should try and do is keep it tight, of course, and then try and target them late on and hit them on the break.
I think Pochettino's canny enough to know though that that's not going to work. If you sit back and invite City on, they will pull you apart.
And especially if they get a goal really, really early, you're sort of like, they just try and sit on that for the rest of the... I mean, obviously they couldn't. They had to go on and score another one, but away goals, man.
To have 4 goals in essentially just under 7 minutes
Incredible.
in a big
Good
Champions
goal,
League
too.
tie. It's just insane. It's absolutely insane.
If you look at the benches, when Man City are looking for the bench, John Stones obviously could have come on centre half, but probably not needed. Leroy Sané, Fernandinho, Riyad Mahrez, Otamendi, Gabriel Jesus. When you read out the Spurs bench, or when the commentator did, when they were, they lost Sissoko early on for crying out loud. You've got Davison Sanchez, Carl Walker-Peters, Llorente came on, of course, Juan Foyth, Paulo Gazzaniga.
He's a goalkeeper.
Yeah.
Gazzaniga,
sorry. Ben Davis, Oliver Skipp. That shows you.
Yeah.
If you look at the benches, I know the first 11s are not that far apart, but Man City's is better.
Should Wanyama be anywhere near that squad?
Well, he hasn't. He's hardly
been,
played.
would he?
Yeah. And Marcus, you say about John Stones, he probably wasn't needed. Did you see Aymeric Laporte?
Yeah.
Because he did a pretty good impression of someone who might well be needed to be replaced at some point.
That's true, isn't it?
Even though he's had a good season.
But it's a remarkable achievement from Spurs. The debate goes straight to VAR, doesn't it? And for me, it's a head versus heart situation because the right calls were made. I think anybody who thinks that Llorente goal shouldn't have stood is being a bit silly. It did flick his arm. I'll have that. But
It's
for me,
certainly not clear enough.
Exactly. If that's given as a penalty and whatnot, I'm not.
UEFA
having that.
guidelines say it isn't a penalty.
Yeah,
Simple as
so for me that's a goal all day long. And then the Aguero one, I mean, the talk about margins of football, it was centimetres, not even inches. But just to finish, Jim, sorry, the point for VAR is head versus heart for me because the head says both calls were correct and the right outcome was made, but the heart says, is that what we're going to have in football now?
Yeah, will
Last
it
minute
always be
goals.
like that?
Is it if this sets a precedent? and this becomes the norm, a team's going to score, and everyone goes, "Hang on, let's just wait a moment for the celebration." All right, now we can celebrate. For me, that looks awful. But the right team went through because of VAR.
It's a tacit endorsement of the fact that most football is consumed outside of the stadium, and fuck the people who are actually in there. To be honest, in my opinion, I think VAR's a poor solution, an inelegant solution to the situation.
Yeah, Marcus, you tap into something really interesting, which is that like, it's what you pride. It's what it's hard to solve it. If it is a problem to be solved, it's kind of hard to solve it because it depends on the individual's interpretation of what football is to that.
And there's no right or wrong answer.
Yeah. So if you well, I suppose people would say, well, the right answer is simply the rules must be respected and the laws must be correct.
Well, I think people are backtracking on that.
Sure, and I think for me, I don't particularly. I feel like the game should be refereed by humans. I know it is humans, but at the moment it's humans with technology that otherwise wouldn't be available. And to me, it just feels a little bit of a shame. But that incident last night with Sterling at the end was the first time where VAR, I thought, genuinely added to the drama rather than sort of detracted
as
from
Pete
it.
says, though, you're not in the stadium, you're not a Man City fan.
But if I was in the stadium as a Spurs fan, I would have found it more dramatic.
I mean, Spurs fans will be delighted about VAR this morning, but they probably would have been calling for it. If it hadn't been there, and perhaps Llorente's goal had been disallowed, and/or Sterling's hadn't stood. But I think what needs to happen, because obviously VAR is here now, we're going to have it, is that the rules need to be sort of tweaked to account for it. Because I think we've spoken about this before, but it was really clear yesterday. Like the offside decision at the end, Aguero's advantage is so tiny there. I feel like the whole attacker
I know what you mean.
should be ahead of the whole defender to be offside.
Yeah,
because we're seeing this a lot. And there was a Lukaku goal earlier in the season. It was ridiculous. I think it was ruled out. And
there's been instances this season where a striker's toe has been offside.
Well, you could legitimately sort of say, if you're going to get that granular about it, better football strikers should have size 5 shoes. Size 5, they should bind their feet
to give us a lesser
to give
chance
themselves
of
less of a chance of being offside.
We've said this consistently since the start of this.
Yeah.
We've said, and I've repeatedly said, to the point where I've had the piss taken at me online, so I know I fucking said it, that the laws of the game as they exist are not conducive to an implementation of VAR. That's the fact, in my opinion. Is it a fact in my opinion? It's a fact. It's a fact. It's just a
if
straight
it's your
fact.
opinion, it becomes fact.
Because so many of the laws are open to a referee's interpretation.
Yeah.
And one referee may interpret a law a different way to another referee, depending on the game. Go back and listen to the Ramble Mix with Howard Webb. He would say he would referee different games differently because that's what the situation dictated.
I don't necessarily...
And finally, just quickly, Pete, what you've alluded to there, I just want to go a bit further and endorse your opinion. There's no need for assistant referees then.
Yeah.
Because if everything's going to be done by VAR anyway, you don't need a linesman running up and down, not keeping up a play, raising the flag. You don't need it.
But the idea isn't going to be that everything is it?
What do you mean?
I mean,
As in just
there's
goals
always,
and penalties.
there's always going to be a need.
There will be in 5 years' time a pretty robust system that automatically checks offsides.
Yes.
There's also a real-time solution at working out skeletal
with little sensors or whatever.
Not even little sensors. The algorithms can just figure out what arm's in what position and where's what.
Put the computers inside the players.
Put the computers inside the
like
players.
in a space.
Up their bums.
Referee
like,
in a space.
Mainly players that I don't like. But when you are talking about such small margins, you are talking about Peter Crouch's feet. Much bigger than Aguero's feet, for example.
Adebayor, I think, famously had big feet. Kanu had massive feet.
Yeah.
Are we all agreed that Christian Eriksen is enjoying VAR today?
Oh, God,
My goodness. When I saw
what
that,
was he doing?
I thought to myself, I was like, Christian, what are you playing? Just hook that, get it up the line, learn from Victor Wanyama there. Crying out loud, what are you doing?
Wanyama had 2 men open when he whacked out.
Victor Wanyama was... To be fair to him, hasn't played an awful lot of football. He's found it difficult. It looks like he's, the best part of his career is behind him, sadly, for a relatively young man. I mean, he's only 27, for goodness sake.
Bloody hell.
But he was chucked in the deep end there, big time. And I think he was like, blimey, the intensity of this. I'm just swinging. To be honest, it doesn't even have to be a leg. I'm swinging any limit this.
The funny thing, what he could have done was actually, he didn't hit it that far. What you want to do if you're going to put it out of play is hit it not with that much pace. You want it to kind of roll out.
Because of the multi-ball system. Because of the multi-ball system as well. As soon as it crosses the line,
someone's chucking the ball back in.
Can I put something out? This might be a terrible take, and I tweeted it last night. I'm curious to know your guys' take on it.
The kits.
Do you think the kits, the blending of the kits, contributed to the mayhem that we saw in the first 15, 20 minutes?
I wondered about that, because if you look at them side by side, clearly they're very different, but there was something about it en masse. Perhaps because Spurs' kit is green, so obviously you got the pitch to contend with as well.
Yeah.
It did look a bit weird, and I wondered that myself.
I don't think it did.
You don't?
I just don't see how it would.
At the pace they're playing at, the split decisions they have to make, and I wonder if even if subconsciously it just imparted a bit of confusion upon the player and their processes.
It
and
means
stuff.
you got to look at like shorts and socks more, isn't it?
Yeah.
The thing that I always get. Well, I'll use an example, a terrible example, and I hate it when we bring it down to flipping Sunday League, where it's like when people who are wearing like yellow t-shirts or yellow shirts, like an Arsenal away kit from back in the day, they refuse to put a tabard on. They refuse to put a bib on because they think, oh, it's yellow enough. And it's not yellow enough.
No.
I still get confused. I'm like, they haven't got that bright green, exact same colour as everybody else on the team.
This is the first time in the history of knowing you, and hopefully my esteemed friends and colleagues around the table agree that you have essentially implied. No, you've implied that if a job's worth doing, it's worth doing properly.
Yeah.
Because normally you know, back of a fag packet, spit and sawdust, that'll do. And so, but you're saying
not
you
when
don't
correct. Not when it comes to wires. He loves his wires.
True.
He does love his wires.
True, yeah.
He does love his wires. But I mean, Guardiola was gutted about the handball.
He was quite magnanimous apart from that.
He was, to be fair to him. So I'd have to
that's
say,
not the headline, though, is it?
It isn't the headline, Jim, and nor should it be. Jonathan Wilson wrote a very good piece in The Guardian, and may well talk about this on the mailbag out on Saturday, as well, about Guardiola failing to reach the semi-finals and the final since Barcelona, really. And
his away record is very, very problematic.
It is, yeah. And he'll be thinking to himself today, my goodness, again, centimetres. Or maybe just 1 centimetre looking at the phone. And it's for me, I just thought this was such a great game, and it was such a back and forth. Well, in fact, it wasn't even back and forth. Man City were in charge.
But I just think it's indicative of a team that's never really faced many teams that have really gone at them. On Spurs' side as well, teams at the top of the league can't really defend, and once they get up in the Champions League, like the semi-final, final,
Liverpool can defend,
but I just sort of think that Liverpool are probably one of the exceptions. But a lot of the teams that find themselves in the Champions League are surprised at how attacking teams kind of like go at them, and they find themselves wanting at the back. And I think that this was a really good example of two teams who. Teams don't go at them quite as much in the Premier League, so they don't have to work quite as hard on their defensive organisation, so that they're leaking goals on left, right, and centre. It was a bit of a mess at the back.
Jonathan has talked about that as well. Jonathan said that, like, at one point in the Premier League, a penny dropped, and teams who were not expected to win games against big teams just decided to let the other team have the ball and then just dig in. I thought with the personnel they had missing, I thought Spurs might try and do that last night. But the game but the problem is, if we're all sitting around here, whether we're experts in it or not, the reality is, okay, even if we're not, but even if we were, there were 3 goals in 10 minutes.
Yeah, exactly.
So your tactics out the window then. I know it sounds like an old-fashioned kind of, get up at them kind of attitude, but really, you can plan all week for your tactics and how you're going to implement them. If you find that after 21 minutes it's 3-2 and the whole thing's gone mad, you have to really dig in and realise. I was sort of surprised. Maybe they didn't feel they were able to, but I was sort of surprised how little Spurs tried to slow the game down. Because it was in their advantage to have as slow a game as possible, because Man City had to make all the running.
It was in Danny Rose's interest.
To be honest with you, I thought that's what Sissoko might be doing, actually, until he actually went off. I thought that might be...
I feel like the chaos of the game actually suited Spurs, though, because it really felt like that Llorente's goal was in them, even when City went ahead.
Well, it was a real leveller, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But I think... part of the reason that happens is we see it so often in the latter stages of the Champions League. When sometimes you get massive teams thrashing other massive teams in ways you wouldn't expect, like when Bayern Munich just annihilated Barcelona and nobody saw that coming. I think the huge occasion adds so much to it, and that was a perfect example of it tonight.
Absolutely right. And whenever there are a huge group of human beings involved, things can change.
They're very talented.
But also the goal Spurs scored, the first one was a bit fortunate the way it dropped to Son. Excuse me, he puts it in. Then the second one, again, it was a defensive error from Laporte, was it? Who got caught in possession. And then after Spurs scored those 2 goals, normality began to resume, and then Man City eventually went 4-2 and should have really seen the game out. Spurs weren't offering that much.
One of Man City's goals was very fortunate as well, a deflection that gave the keeper no chance.
That was a bit, yeah.
But Llorente's winner, effective winner.
It was
that
a
was
winner.
Fortunate as well.
It was fortunate, but it was sort of bundled in.
It's a crazy game.
But the good news for Man City is they can still win a domestic treble.
True.
Yeah. Well, domestic quad, because they've got the
Community Shield as well.
Community Shield.
Do you think that this is a type of game that whatever you want to do, it's just beyond analysis, really. It's
think
just one
so,
of those
yeah.
games. The Spurs are now 9-2, joint third favourites for the Champions League. I mean, there's only 4 teams left in it, but £10 with Bet365 returns £55 including stake. Credit to them. It's their first semi-final in this competition.
Yep.
I think whatever comes now, and they've got a chance against Ajax, by the way.
They do, and
It's a real
of course
achievement.
I mean,
yeah.
surely that game will have goals. I
hope so,
know,
yeah, you would think.
as if we need any more goals, but my goodness, 2 very exciting attacking
So
sides.
Son, I think, is suspended for the first
Sadly,
leg.
he is.
Kane's going to probably still be out. Well, in fact, he will be still out. It's going to.
Llorente's the man,
If they do this,
even though he
Spurs-
looked knackered and he was a sub.
Yeah, I know. There was talk. Jermaine Gears was laughing. They should take him off. You know, just come on. But, there was someone. I forget who it was, but there was someone who said, "You've got to respect what they've achieved."
Oh, it's enormous.
Even if they don't go any further than the semi-final.
From where they were in the league
That's
position,
amazing.
they were like, what was 1 point? And everyone was on like 6
in the group stage.
Yeah, in the
Yeah,
group stage.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So this game at the weekend is going to be fascinating.
It's
Though, isn't it?
0-0.
I mean, this
0-0
but
on.
this has to be this has the potential to be like the most psychologically odd Premier League game
I know
that,
what you
that has
mean.
ever happened.
Yeah.
It's going to be so interesting to see how both teams approach it.
There's
Well,
Man
Spurs
City-
could
Man
really
City-
put the kibosh on Man City's whole season.
They
Well,
won't.
it's like
They won't.
But-
None of this
No.
will happen.
Yeah, but
Man
what-
City will
what-
Man City will batter them.
we don't
you
know
think?
this,
Yes.
do we? We don't know this, but
Oh.
it's as if the Premier League title race has sort of seeped into the Champions League because it's so tight.
I know
and
what you
so
mean.
hotly
Oddly,
contested.
Liverpool and Man City were racing towards the final. They're racing
Yeah.
towards the
Yeah.
thing. You can analyse it so many ways. Is it good that for Liverpool that Man City are out a bit demoralised, or is it bad because now they think right the league is the main thing? I'll tell you one thing. After all this talk of the quadruple, and it wasn't Guardiola who was saying that, so
course.
Yeah.
Man City fans not having a go at him.
Apparently, privately he was, but he's not
Well,
publicly.
But considering all the money and blah 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 and all that bollocks, it would be hilarious for the neutral if all they won this season was the Carabao.
It really would. It really would.
And the
wouldn't it?
Community Shield. Stop being
Oh,
disrespectful.
okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Already in the bag.
Well, that's a double, according to Jose Mourinho.
To me,
Two-thirds
City
of
win
it.
that game easily on Saturday.
Well.
Spurs have got literally no midfield players.
Well, we've come on to Liverpool in just a sec, but Man City, their remaining fixtures, obviously Spurs and then Manchester United away, Burnley away, Leicester at home, Brighton away. It's a little bit tougher because Liverpool came through that sort of Spurs and Chelsea.
Yes, they did.
double, so they're through there.
They did.
But Liverpool, if we could move on to them, I think we're done with that game,
Yeah.
and we
Yes.
could do the rest of the show on that game. But
Yeah.
they're away to Cardiff. Of course, Cardiff have given themselves a great chance. But Liverpool, the way they comfortably beat Porto after being pretty much under siege for the first
And he rested a couple as
half,
well.
and he did indeed. They win 6-1 on aggregate.
Yeah.
Which I know Porto is a more favourable draw than Spurs, but I mean Spurs is still a good side for crying out loud.
Yeah,
I
they had
mean,
their chance in the
anyone
first
that's
leg.
there at this point
course.
is good. clearly.
But the way Liverpool did that, they didn't break too much of a sweat.
Mm-hmm.
Again, they're just going about their business. Now, away to Cardiff, they should win the game. Cardiff will have their tails up, relatively speaking, after that crucial win against Brighton. But their remaining fixtures, obviously Cardiff away, Huddersfield at home, Newcastle away, with ex-Liverpool manager Rafa Benitez in charge. I think that might be relevant. Who knows? And then Wolves at home. You've got to say that Liverpool surely are looking at 12 points there.
But it's in Man City's hands.
It is in
And
Man City's hands.
I
Do you know
honestly,
which game I'm looking at?
Old Trafford?
Burnley away.
no, I think
I honestly, I don't know. I've got a feeling about Burnley away for Man City.
City win easily against Spurs this weekend, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And I think there will be righteous vengeance delivered to every team that dares to line up against Man City for the rest of the season.
They're going to Old Trafford though, right? And what an interesting game that is again, because Man United obviously will want to dent City's title hopes, but
No,
in doing
I-
so they could hand the title to Liverpool.
I tell you something. That's the point, Jim.
I don't
Having
think-
all the Man United fans I know, and there's a handful of them, they'd all rather Man
down
City.
the supporters club.
Absolutely.
Did you see,
They-
did
they-
you see Manchester United playing Barcelona?
They
this week?
all would rather Man City won the league than
Absolutely.
Liverpool.
It's better
Now,
the
that
devil you know,
atmosphere-
isn't it?
Of course, that atmosphere may filter around the stadium, but Solskjaer knows that if he's talking about a rebuilding job, we'll come on to Man United in the second half. They're obviously away at Everton. If they need to rebuild, they need to do all these things after Barcelona. They've got to qualify for the Champions League.
Am I the
They've
only
got
one?
to.
Am I the only one around this table who thinks that Man United haven't played well for about a month and a half?
I don't
No,
know. We'll talk
absolutely
about Man
not.
United second half.
City for me are going to be
Okay.
absolutely. I wouldn't be surprised if they've done about 9 hours of training already today.
Okay, so Liverpool, they've got a great win and they're playing Cardiff. Now, Cardiff, if we can drag ourselves away for a moment from the Champions League and the title race, Cardiff, a massive win
Yeah.
away to Brighton this week, which has kept them alive. And I feared for Cardiff because I thought, we saw Bournemouth dispatch Brighton 5-0, but after that Chelsea game, the way Warnock stood there, crestfallen, I thought, is that the moment? And it could well be. Cardiff could still go down, of course, but to pick your players up from that is very, very difficult because they were harshly done by so bad. We could have done with a bit of VAR there.
I think Warnock's done an incredible job.
But to get that win away to Brighton.
To get them back in it, because it compounded that defeat at home to Chelsea. You'd expect them to lose to Man City away. They didn't disgrace themselves.
No.
But then they lost out to Burnley, which was a winnable game. And then to rouse them again to beat Brighton, who look in a terrible state.
Yeah, they really do.
Surely it would be between Brighton and Cardiff.
It is.
Now.
It's got to be.
Southampton. Hasenhutl's got Southampton out of it.
But Cardiff have got two. I'll tell you. Sorry, Jim. Cardiff, even if you don't expect them to win against Liverpool at home, they could pick up 6 points from the next two games, because they're playing Fulham and then Crystal Palace, and even though Fulham are relegated and the shackles are off, they're still not looked any good. Then they'll be on 37 points. If you look at what Brighton are 2 points ahead of them.
Yeah.
And then next up, away to Wolves. Not sure there'll be anything for them there. Although Wolves have slipped up against lesser teams.
It's a tricky one.
Yeah, they've got Spurs away. You can't expect them to win there. They've got Arsenal away. They've got Man City at home. And they've got Newcastle United at home. There could be a situation where if they win that game at home to Newcastle, they still go down because Cardiff will have one more point than them.
Well, it depends how much Cardiff can get, because Cardiff, Liverpool at home, Manchester United away, they're the two ones. But Fulham away and Palace at home.
It would be an astonishing escape, wouldn't it?
It would be.
It would be probably one of Warnock's. To be honest, he never lasts this long. He's usually gone by December in the Premier League anyway. But like,
would Warnock call it a Rexit, relegation escape?
Didn't he? I mean, I know he says a lot of stuff all the time, and the less said about that, the better. But didn't the Warlock say that if he kept him in the Premier League, it'd be his greatest ever achievement?
Oh, right,
yeah, and I think that would be.
I'd agree with it. I mean, getting Cardiff promoted on that shoestring budget, surrounded by Wolves and obviously Fulham were great, and the likes of Villa and so on.
I think
it'd be remarkable.
There's a thing people are forgetting about though is Cardiff could possibly face a points deduction because of that kit. That away kit. It looks like a tabard, actually, like a sort of horrific lime green tabard.
Imagine that if it was a weird points deduction. Did him again
based on
when he was Sheffield United manager.
Kids are kind of going in a weird direction at the moment, it feels to me.
That one is particularly bad, right? I'm not alone in thinking that. Actually, Arsenal's mint green abomination we'll come on to as well. But
a few of my friends who support Arsenal, all I've heard recently, I don't know why, probably because Ian Wright's been wearing it on Instagram, but they're saying we've got to go back to the bruised banana.
Oh, I couldn't agree more.
Because Arsenal are changing kit supplies for next season.
Yeah, back to Adidas. I think the green kit is a parting shot from Puma.
Yeah.